humility in leadership. It sounds almost an oxymoron, like efficiency in bureaucracy.
People think that just adding the word humble and then going on to say whatever they want actually makes them humble. It's like I play tennis, I borrow Rafael Nadal's racket and I start hitting the forehand like him.
Let's give our listeners some examples of how not to use or abuse the word humble. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Jest Business. It's me, your host Rahul Phondke, and along with Ms. Paddy Rangappa.
Hello.
And in the past, we had covered various topics under this podcast, like the usage of business jargon, silly interview questions. However, today we are going to cover a very interesting topic. It's called humility in leadership. It sounds almost an oxymoron, like efficiency in bureaucracy. But let's ask Paddy, what does he think?
I think that's exactly right. Or you could say it's like brevity in a politician.
Or honesty in advertising.
Oh, let me give you another one. Simplicity in tax codes.
Or
I think, Rahul, the idea was to just convey in a subtle way that humility is absent in leadership. I mean, if you keep ping-ponging like this, we may put the listeners into a trance.
Yeah. Fair enough, I just got one more.
Okay, one more. Go ahead, man.
How about privacy in social media?
Oh, good one. Worth giving you the chance to do another one.
Since you're saying one more, I will say how about silence from Rahul?
Actually, Rahul, I was not saying yet one more. I was actually saying it was worth giving you a chance to do one more. But now that you've said it, that was also a good one. But please follow it now. Silence from Rahul, at least on this topic. Okay? And we'll get on with talking about the actual topic.
All right. Message received loud and clear. So, Paddy, on coming back to today's topic on humility in leadership, I think although we're going to talk about it today, the event that we attended last week kind of really drove the point home, didn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, if the organizers had taken a tattoo and imprinted the message on our foreheads, they could not have driven the point home more.
But for the benefit of our listeners, what I would like to state here is last week, me and Paddy actually attended a business event. And a part of that event, there was a panel discussion. And in that panel discussions, there were four CEOs who were being quizzed and asked questions. And these four CEOs, were ambitious, bold, talkative, confident. These are not their names, they're the attributes. But one notable attribute, Paddy, which I would think you would agree was missing, was humility.
Absolutely.
I mean, each of the CEOs was talking as though he was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Exactly. And that actually is a good segue to introduce the topic of level 5 leadership. What do you say?
I would say yes, but I really have no idea what is level 5 leadership.
I don't blame you. It's not a very well-known concept. Jim Collins had written a book called Good to Great, in which he describes level 5 leaders who are responsible for some remarkable business turnarounds and very successful companies they ran. They all shared two qualities. One is a fierce resolve, a burning ambition to get things done. And the second, a deep humility. Indeed, the topic of today's podcast.
Interesting. So suffice to say, the leaders that we saw last week were not level 5 leaders.
No. And that's a good way to introduce our topic. And just for some fun, why don't we discuss this with a Southpaw Maneuver?
I like that. I like that how you weave the term Southpaw Maneuver casually and into the conversation.
Thank you.
Good show. But Paddy, I must confess, not all of our viewers might be familiar with Southpaw Maneuver because, we have used it earlier. No one has any context. And even those who had listened to the past episodes may not really remember it anymore. No?
Hang on. I think it's reasonable that if somebody had not listened to the podcast, they may not know what Southpaw Maneuver is. But to somebody who has actually attended and they don't remember it, I think that's blasphemy. Or if I may put it in business jargon, that's mission critical protocol omission. Rahul, I don't think we should have this. I've got an idea.
Yeah.
Why don't we introduce a quiz at the end of each podcast?
Let's put that amazingly striking idea at the end of the podcast, but let's get back to the theme.
Okay, we'll discuss it later.
So for the benefit of the viewers, a Southpaw Maneuver is a maneuver where you do something totally unexpected. It comes from the boxing world where a boxer who is right-handed suddenly throws a punch with his left hand, which is not expected by the opponent. That is Jest Business's proud contribution to the world of business jargon.
And the
Another
other
one is centipede move, right? Where you make a business move, the consequences of which are not really clear. It looks good, it might be bad, but looks good. You don't know whether it's coming or going. Extremely handy to come in your strategy meetings. So that's the Southpaw Maneuver and the centipede move.
Let's bring out this lack of humility in leaders by doing actual role plays, where sometimes I would be the not humble leader or the arrogant jerk, if you put it that way, and you would be the innocent questioner or employee, and then we'll switch it around and you can get to be the jerk too.
So let's roll with that. In fact, for the scenario of the role play, I would suggest taking the example of a leader who was really known for his both leadership as well as humility. I'm talking about Mohandas or Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, in his essay, The Power of Humility, he actually highlights or stresses how humility is a basic fundament to bring about social change and also non-violent resistance. His reply to this life reporter, Margaret Burke-Smith, if I remember the name correctly, was one for the ages. So I would suggest maybe we can use that scenario for our role play. You can play the role of
Gandhi.
Yes.
Oh my God! I'd love to play the role of Gandhi. In the past, I've actually done it in a fancy dress, and people tell me I look very authentic. So, I love to play.
You played Gandhi, Paddy?
Yes.
Who won?
That's a secret.
All right, but what I meant to say is you do it exactly the opposite way. As in, we do the role play. I ask you the question which Margaret Burke-Smith did ask Mr. Gandhi, but you have to reply it not as Gandhi, but how a level 4 leader would typically, answer that question.
The arrogant fellow.
Correct.
Okay.
So let me ask you the question which Margaret Burke-Smith, asked Mr. Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi, you're the only man I know who actually makes his own clothes.
Of course I am, Margaret. Of course I am. There's actually no one like me. I'm the best. Not just at this, at most things. Actually, I've been gifted with a supreme hand-eye coordination, and that's why I wield the chakra, or as you would call it in the West, the spinning wheel, so well. In fact, my hand-eye coordination came to the light of my PT teacher when I was young. PT is physical trainer, we call that in India. And he told me, Mohan, you can be a maestro in any sport and become a professional athlete. But I chose not to do that. I chose to work for the masses, lift the downtrodden. And that's what I do by wielding the chakra. And you're right, very few people can do it like me. So I may not be fashionable in what I wear, but oh boy, am I humble. How's that? Good?
Absolutely. It was brilliant. In fact, had you gone for a few moments longer, your head would have exploded with all that, arrogance seeping through. So, Mr. Gandhi, you're the only person whom I know who actually makes his own clothes.
Considering what I wear, Margaret, that's not much of an accomplishment.
That's a classic example of where humility and modesty is blended together. The leadership coming from man of Gandhi's, eminence. It's really amazing that someone like him could say that. All said and done, Paddy, Gandhi was a great leader. However, he was not really an example of a business leader.
I know, that's true.
Do you have any example of anyone from the business world?
I do. In fact, to set us off, let me ask you, do you recognize any of the 3 leaders I'm showing here?
All right. I think the man on the left is well known as Jack Welch.
Correct.
The one in the center. The others 2, I don't.
Okay, let me tell you their names and then you tell me if you recognize the names. The first one, you're right, is Jack Welch. He was CEO of General Electric. The one in the middle is Lee Iacocca, who headed up Chrysler. And the last one on the right is Darwin Smith, who was the CEO of Kimberly-Clark. And all 3 were in the same era, in the late 2 decades of the last century. So now I think, which of them have you heard of?
Okay, Lee Iacocca, I must confess, I didn't recognize his face, but the name is well known. So is Jack Welch. I mean, honestly, they're they're celebrity CEOs. Yeah. Heard of them, books on them, but Darwin Smith, I never heard that name before.
And who do you guess would be the level 5 leader?
Well, guessing by the reputation, I would think it's Jack Welch.
Now, most people would guess that, but actually, it's Darwin Smith that Jim Collins waxes eloquently about. He was a level 5 leader. Under his leadership, Kimberly-Clark, which had been doing very badly, had a remarkable turnaround. And for 20 years that he was at the helm, it was the best years of Kimberly-Clark's existence.
Really? I find it so remarkable, because Jack Welch, Lee Iacocca, apart from the books, there were press coverage, there were documentaries, there were TV coverage.
Exactly.
In fact, I remember when Jack Welch was about to leave or about to depart, 6 months before, there were so much of coverage on who will run GE, who will take over from Jack Welch. I don't remember having read anything about such sort from Darwin Smith.
And that you actually touched a very good point. That's the beauty of all level 5 leaders. But Darwin Smith, people didn't know him when he was there, and people didn't know when he left. There was no ripple in the organization. And one of the characteristics of level 5 leaders is that they groom the next person to take over so well that there is no need for anybody to even know that the CEO has changed. Whereas, just like in Jack Welch's case, when a level 4 or a not level 5 manager leaves, sometimes the business actually goes through a very tough time, and they have to go for 2-3 CEOs. And that's often cited as the greatness of the level 4, but actually it's the reverse because they didn't groom anybody.
In fact, that's what happened to G after his departure as well. It's, all about their strategy, their vision, their, execution.
And their pomposity,
Absolutely.
And not only it's bad enough that their pomposity doesn't get called out, it's actually the reverse happens because people around them add fuel to that pomposity by praising them and laughing at every silly joke of theirs, and they hire people who would do that. So it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to make them, if they started as not so humble, to end up as reasonably pompous.
Yeah, that's right. So coming back to the podcast, since we're doing a role play, do you have anything for me?
Yes, I think I've got a good idea here. Why don't we do a role play? You become the arrogant jerk, and let's stick to the same company we invented for a previous podcast, Alpha Beta Pipes. And you are the CEO, Patrick Montgomery.
Okay.
And I'm going to be the journalist interviewing you on your tremendous success of your company. So, Mr. Montgomery, it's been fascinating to listen to the story of how Alpha Beta Pipes, from a small suburban hardware shop in Illinois, has become now a global multinational giant. And the stellar growth and your role in this, I want to know more. So tell me, describe your success as a leader.
Oh, that's right, Paddy. That's a brilliant question. Brilliant question. But I got an even more brilliant answer. Paddy, that was not easy. It was not easy at all. But it was my vision. I got the right vision. It was so right that after the interview, there was nothing left. It was brilliant, sheer brilliant vision. It's not only that. After I got, I took charge. I fired all the people. They're complete idiots. Nice people. But, hired by my predecessor who didn't know what he was doing. I let the whole team go, and I brought in my own team. Wonderful people. They all love me. They still remember me. My team, they executed it all. But the king of it all, I got one, is the Montgomery mantra. It was so great.
Mantra,
It was a 3-year strategy. I had it printed on all the walls, all the screensavers.
Wow.
I tattooed inside people's eyes. Everyone knew it, inside out. And the Montgomery mantra was the secret. But you know what? I personally led all the execution myself. I was in the office 24/7, sometimes even longer, working on weekends.
Whoa.
If that wasn't done, it would have never happened, Paddy.
And what was the actual mantra? I'm dying to know that, Mr. Montgomery.
Oh, the actual mantra. Good thing, Paddy. You should have known it already by now. So you've not done your homework, but don't worry, I'll know it. I know it all out.
Sorry.
It's make Alpha Beta great again and again.
Oh, make Alpha Beta great again
Absolutely.
and again. It's wonderful. Well done.
How was that, Paddy?
Oh, not only was it superb, but behind that fake Montgomery, I discerned a not so fake, real country leader. But we'll come back to that later.
Let's reverse the roles and let's see how would a level 5 leader would address that. All right.
Okay.
So, Mr. Darwin Smith, under you, as the CEO of Kimberly-Clark, what do you think was behind your thinking or behind your strategy for this execution?
There were two things that really worked. One, I was lucky, right place, right time. And two, we had great people in the company running the show. That's it. That's it.
No artificial intelligence or no extraordinary vision or no reading of the tea leaves ahead of the market.
No
Nothing
reading
of
the
that sort?
tea leaves, no paradigm shift, no thinking out of the box, no showing off, and definitely no jargon. And this was Smith's reply, but Jim Collins says that typically the level 5 leader cites these two reasons behind their success: luck and having great people.
Amazing. I found this servile behavior demonstrated by candidates also, and suck-uppy candidates, where the level 4 leadership, I think, typically tends to attract because they feed off this kind of fawning over them and this energy. So maybe let's do a role reversal where I play a candidate and you play a leader. Okay. And, let's see, I try and ask questions about your management style. So let me go. Let's call him Mr. Benson. So Mr. Benson, if selected by your company, I'll not only bring my A game to the team, I'll be a part of your team member. I'll be a invaluable member of your team. And together we will think out of the box and lead game-changing strategies to win the low-hanging fruit and achieve market share.
Oh, Mr. Phondke, it has been a pleasure to talk to you and to share with you how this company has made strides under my leadership and how we demonstrate out-of-the-box thinking as an everyday thing, and we challenge status quo even as we breathe. Now, tell me, do you have any question for me as part of this interview?
Oh, yes, Mr. Benson. I'm glad you gave me the opportunity. You're a legend in the industry and everyone's dying to know.
True.
How would you describe your management style?
Oh, what a great question. Mr. Phondke, apart from doing well in the interview, you also ask great questions. That's a lovely question. And I've thought about it a lot.
Right.
And I would summarize, my management style with this phrase: I'm a visionary who works. Wow. You see the play of words there? I call it a phonetic alliteration because it's V and W, but it sounds
amazing.
It sounds like verb. Visionary with who works. That's what I describe myself. And I take a 30,000 feet view of the business. I don't want to mistake the forest for the trees. And here, see the play of words here again. From 30,000 feet, you will see the forest, not the trees.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I'd like to say, I'm a visionary who works. So what that means is I get the vision and then I roll up my sleeves and I get to work. As we say in business, I walk the talk. But Mr. Phondke, or can I call you Rahul? I think I can call you Rahul. So Rahul, many managers walk the talk. But you know what I also do? I talk the walk. Wow. Do you know what I mean by that?
Brilliant. I'm so impressive. Especially Mr. Benson, if I can interrupt, you said phonetic alliteration. That's already 2 steps above alliterative phonetization, which most other leaders will do.
That's a good one.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Good. But here's how I talk the walk. Shall I tell you how?
Yes,
my full name is Bradley Scott Benson. And I tell people, don't go by name. Don't go by my name. You know why I say that?
No, please, I'm dying to know.
I say, don't go by my name. I may be called B.S. Benson, but actually I am no B.S. Benson. How's that?
Oh, that's brilliant. So BS, no bullshit Benson. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. I'm surprised. You could just think of this at your level. You could think of laterally and think of this thing. And you're actually quite lucky to have a name like that. Which
I'm sorry. Luck has nothing to do with it. If I had a different name, I would have come up with a different saying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, sure, luck wouldn't have got you so far, Mr. Benson.
You're right.
Absolutely.
You're right.
So, Paddy, I think that was a brilliant example of a level 4 leader answering a question about management style, pomposity, and so on. But now let's do the role reversal in the sense you play a level 5 leader.
Okay.
And let me ask you a question about your management style. So, Mr. Darwin Smith, as the CEO of Kimberly-Clark, you showed a remarkable turnaround and your record speaks for itself. How would you describe your management style?
Eccentric.
That's it?
That's it.
Again, no vision, no. Strategy, no 4-box model, nothing of that sort?
No 4-box model. And this I was not inventing. This was actually the answer that Darwin Smith gave to a journalist who asked him that question. He was shy, unpretentious, and he hated the limelight.
Oh, brilliant. So refreshing to see people like that do exist.
It's almost like from these people, you learn humility, but from the other leaders, like the ones we attended the workshop, you learn not to be humble.
Talking about humility, I don't think a word has been abused so much ever in our times as the word humility and being humble. I was a part of a team, that was working on a very critical IT project.
Okay.
And I'll just refer my notes because I need to get this right. This project was being led by a regional IT head, multi-country rollout. And one of the critical deadlines, as usual happens with these projects, I got this note from her. I humbly request you to adhere to the timeline shared. I'm working day and night to get this project completed.
So humble, so humble. Were you bowled over by her humility?
On the contrary, Paddy, I thought this person was so full of herself that her actual humility is overflowing into her emails. I think corporate humility or professional humility comes only in extra large size.
I agree with you. In fact, people think that just adding the word humble and then going on to say whatever they want actually makes them humble. That's so ridiculous. It's like I play tennis, I borrow Rafael Nadal's racket and I start hitting the forehand like him. So here's another one that I give you an example from my side. I attended as an audience a presentation by a rookie. 1 or 2 years into the company, a 30-slide presentation on the business and all that. After listening to her, the managing director says, when I was your age, nobody gave me any feedback, probably because I did not need it. But you do. In my humble opinion, your analysis was weak, your communication weaker than that, and overall you added no value to the business.
Ouch.
Ouch. And that was the reaction of the employee too. I could see that she did not look, she looked devastated. She did not look humbled, bowled over by humility or empowered by the feedback.
Honestly, Paddy, I don't know what is it with this humble opinion. I hear it being used or abused everywhere. It's, almost like people are trying to use the word humble to mask or couch their arrogance.
Yeah, like I am humbled.
Or I humbly request.
Or in all humility. That's
in all humility. Basically using the word humble, but meaning the exact opposite. So actually, Paddy, let's give our listeners some examples of how not or to use or abuse the word humble. So give me one.
I'll give you one. I humbly request you to move your backside and do some work. Justify your existence and get this project back on track.
I would say, honestly, when you pass feedback like my manager passed me, you can just say, show a bit more empathy.
Yeah.
Dear so-and-so or dear Rahul, so-and-so, I understand you might be busy and we're all pushing deadlines. I appreciate your effort. But I would just like to remind you, if these deliverables are not delivered by Tuesday, the project could be delayed and we could face possible penalties.
Hi.
Perfect. It kind of shows empathy. It kind of, without really trying to throw your weight around. And I think that's how it should be.
Yeah, when you're criticizing someone, it's difficult to be humble, but at least don't be an absolute
criticism
jerk.
as criticism. Don't try to mask it under your usage of humility by arrogance. Maybe let's say, example of a CEO who's introducing, say, bump into you as CEO at the airport and you have your team with you. And let's say a casual introduction. Even there, people manage to find way to squeeze in their arrogance.
You be the CEO.
Okay, fine.
And give me the introduction.
Okay. Hey, welcome, Paddy. Nice to bump into you. Let me just quickly introduce you to my some members of my 17-member leadership team. This is Eileen Tan. She heads marketing. She reports to me. This is David. He's into finance. He also reports to the CFO, who actually reports to me. And this is John. He's actually not a part of the leadership team. He's just here as my PA.
Oh, wow. Wow. What an introduction. Yeah. I think that 3 things I kind of think the CEO could do better. One is, if you're introducing 3 people, stick to those 3. You don't have to bring in this other 17 people or 22 people who are also in your team. Second, I think it's useful to introduce people who work with you as your colleagues and not as your underlings, and never ever use the word PA. I think that's quite demeaning. And I think lastly,
I don't know demeaning, but definitely it could have some more dignity. That's true. I agree.
Yeah. So colleagues is just a nice word. It encompasses everybody. After all, we are all working for the same company.
You don't need to pull rank unnecessarily.
And I would say always use the term work with me instead of work for me.
Fair enough.
You know, after all, we are all working for the company. And even if you are the business owner, it's still nice to say that the others work with you to grow the business.
I agree. Any statement? What do you think about this LinkedIn phenomenon? If you see humble, because it's impossible to go on LinkedIn and not see the word humble.
I'm going to read you a specific one that I have read just 2 days ago and tell me what's your view on it. I'm humbled to have been promoted to the level of ops director with only 8 years of experience and to lead a team of 42.
So in my honest opinion, Paddy, I think LinkedIn has become like the asylum for the professionally insecure. Where people go and amplify their professional insecurities by actually boasting about them.
Yeah.
But let me kind of course correct by telling people what the basic mistake.
Yeah, please.
So being humble is actually being shown your place, being made less proud, being taken down a notch.
Exactly.
It's nothing to do with the word, the way they are trying to use it. I mean, let's say this land is great. I'm just humble to be the recipient of its gifts, something like that.
That's beautiful.
Where you actually put down yourself a notch below. And being proud is something, that gives you pleasure or, satisfaction for a feat that you achieved. I'm proud of being, of my daughter having made it to the top 10 tennis players in Singapore, for example. Yeah. So
I'm very well put.
These two words were used in the right context, they would have much more, you see much less noise and much more meaning on LinkedIn.
I think what Rahul is basically saying is that humbled and proud are not synonyms. They are the opposite, in fact. So if you have to say something, just use the word, I'm proud to have been promoted or I'm proud to have accomplished this. That's the word you're looking for. What do you say?
In fact, humble opinion is almost actually a complete oxymoron in that sense.
Yes, you're right.
But Paddy, as we wind down to the end of today's session, let me say, as a level 4 leader would say humility.
I'm so humble, so humble. I'm so humble that my opinion is also so humble that don't even dare say it. That's right.
Oh, well said.
On that note, Paddy, let's maybe humbly request you to, send in, request the viewers to send in your anecdotes, your episodes, your experiences, your ideas to our email at justbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Yes. And if you like the podcast, do subscribe and get others to do it too. Thank you.
All right. See you for the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye.